The House will come to order. Reports of standing committees, clerk will read.
Your Committee on Calendar and Printing recommends on request for resolutions and certificates that request by Representative O'Hobson, Ellis, Collins, Curtis, Barrett, Mosier, and Wassinger be approved, and the Chief Clerk of the House be directed to order the printing of said certificates and order drafting of said resolutions.
Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader to adopt the calendar and printing report.
I move adoption of calendar and printing report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Speaker recognizes Representative Bryce for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2249.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conference Committee added the contents of two bills, House Bill 2365 and House Bill 2249. So there are two parts to this report. First part is the original House Bill 2249, which authorizes the Secretary of KDADS to grant physical environment waivers for up to 10 skilled nursing facility beds, SNF beds, in rural emergency hospitals. Without the waiver, a newly designated rural emergency hospital could not continue to have their skilled nursing facility beds unless they updated and reapplied as a new application, which would be cost prohibitive. So this bill would help prevent closure of needed hospital services. Second part of the bill, which was added to it, is 2365. It establishes the South Central Regional Mental Health Hospital, creates a fee fund for completion of the hospital, establishes the catchment areas for the state hospitals, and renames Parsons State Hospital and Training Center as Parsons State Hospital. Original Bill 2249 passed 122 to 0 in the House, 40 to 0 in the Senate. Original House Bill 2365 passed 121 to 2 in the House, 40 to 0 in the Senate, and the Senate just passed the CCR 40 to 0 a couple of days ago. Mr. Chair, I would move adoption of the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2249 and stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Susan Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank the carrier of the committee report. Did a good job of explaining. This is very, very good bill, and I urge your support of the Conference Committee report for HB 2249. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Bryce, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2249. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative? Seeing 10 hands, call the House is in order. Doorman will close the doors. Members will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Auerkamp, Esau, Goddard, Haskins, Hubert, O'Hobson, Sawyer Clayton, Tarwater, Turk, L. Williams.
Representative Esau votes aye. Representative Haskins votes aye. Representative O'Hobson votes aye. Representative Goddard votes aye. Representative Auerkamp votes aye. Representative Johnson may be excused. Representative Laura Williams votes aye. Representative Sawyer Clayton votes aye. Representative Estes, you may be excused. Representative Turk votes aye. Representative Tarwater votes aye. Representative Turk and Tarwater are excused. Representative Clayton, you're excused. Not seeing 10 hands, call is raised. Are there any further changes of votes? Seeing none, 123 voting in favor and 1 against the passage of House Bill 2249, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Getz for a motion to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2382.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So great to be here this late with all of you wonderful people.
Yeah, tell them.
Such a beautiful evening out. Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report. And what this bill does, two things. One idea that was a passion of mine this year was to support our state board. And whether it's conservative-led or Democrat-led, however you want to phrase it, they have a big responsibility, and so do we. And so their pay raise was heavy on me this year, that I thought we needed to do something. And so in that, we had a bill come out, and when we sent it over to the Senate, and it had great support in this body and in committee. And then when it got over there, that part got taken out. And so and what got inserted was something that I think is a very good idea. Some people might not agree with the how, but the what is a field development video for 3 minutes that you think about in past when we couldn't see that development of how all of us got here. But now we can, and whether it's a pro-life look at it or a pro-choice look at it, that is still the fact of how we got here. And to allow in education for that to be seen by kids of middle school, high school ages, I didn't disagree with that. I did disagree with the how of gutting our idea from the House and inserting this that they did vote on. I'll tell you some of the proponents and opponents to help you make a decision here. But the bill, then I had to, with help of committee members, figure out a solution for what to do with the state board, of how to get that back in there, and that's why the conference committee was called. And so they were not going to, they weren't budging on just putting ours back in, running them side by side. What they were willing to do is give the state board the authority to set their pay. It is a unique way to do it, and we are going to monitor it, but it does, I think, communicate trust and honor towards, hey, we believe that you'll do this right. And we'll watch, and you can ask for an appropriation this next year, but this gives you the authority to, what does that need to look like for the state board? Not from the legislative purview, but from their purview. And so that was the idea that was coupleable with their language that they had inserted into the bill. And so that is what we have. Authority of the state board to set their own pay rate and a fetal development 3-minute video that I think can be viewed from a very information-based. It is not trying to sway anybody. That's my opinion. May not be yours. The little bit of what I wanted to share was because we didn't get to hear the Senate Bill 275, which is what the Senate inserted. And I just wanted to share a little bit of the proponent and opponent. The proponents for that bill were Kansans for Life and private citizens. The opponent testimony was provided by representatives of Loud Like Civic Action and Planned Parenthood of Great Plains. So again, I think you can see that, and a representative from Wichita said this earlier, and I very much agreed with how he phrased it. Of a lot of times we allow this pro-life, pro-choice debate to invade things that it may not actually be about that. It may just be about good information in education. And so I'm wanting you to support this. There is 2 good ideas, not the way I would have packaged it, but it was what I had to work with and what our team had to work with, and I think there is something good here. The Senate, for what it's worth, voted this out 31-9, and with that, Mr. Speaker, I will stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Poskin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. McChair. And I hope there's still some backup bingo players because I worked on this earlier today and I'm going to impress you with some of the things that are in here. So House Bill 2382 was a good bill until the lesser chamber got a hold of it. By inserting Senate Bill 275, we are overriding local control and mandating 3 minutes of fetal development videos into every single course or instruction across every grade. There is no grade limit on this. So we're talking about kindergartners in every school because we established in the conference committee that a general biology class would touch on this. So every district offers that touches on human growth, development, or sexuality. Would schools be required to show a 3-minute fetal development video when someone gives the instruction, okay, ladies, let's get in formation by height? I mean, that's human growth, isn't it? I told you this was going to be good. Wake up. In all seriousness, this will impact thousands of courses across Kansas. We asked the reviser if there were any codified definitions of courses or instruction, and the answer was no. So every single course that touches on any of those topics will be required to have a 3-minute video on fetal development. So there are no grade limits and there is no definition of course or instruction. So as the carrier mentioned, the House tried to put back in language for the State Board of Education raises, but there's no funding. It requires them to eliminate positions and services if they implemented the same raise we got. There's no funding. You didn't have to do that. And this is why we can't have nice things in education. And speaking of nice things in education, I do want to compliment our chair this year because he did invite school boards. And I will tell you that we had a wonderful discussion with the school boards in K-12 where we just came and asked them what do they want and what can we do for them. And one of the things they specified is do not mandate curriculum. So folks, that is what this bill now does instead of the good thing that it started with. Seriously, my advice to school districts fielding angry calls from parents, if this bill passes, about why their kindergartners are watching videos about fetal development, if they have not chosen to have that conversation with them, that is to call anyone who votes to mandate schools to do so. Don't be that person. Vote no on House Bill 2382. And are there any more bingos? No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I urge you to vote no in seriousness. This is a mandate that touches the entire state of Kansas in every single grade. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition of this bill. I agree with everything that the representative from Leawood said, but that's not really why I came up here. Last year, I was new and I was plugged in to fill a vacancy, and one of my committees was the Education K-12 budget. And school funding is important to me, if you haven't noticed, but the experience in that committee last year was rather frustrating. I want to give some serious respect and appreciation to the new chair of the K-12 education budget, carrier of the Conference Committee report. He has really come at this job of chairing this committee with a growth mindset, with a solution-oriented mindset, and he takes the time to let everyone speak. He encourages us to come with ideas to fix things rather than just complain. And I think this body would do a really good service to Kansas if we all approached our job in that way. So I really would like to take my hat off to the representative from Dodge City and say that I'm very happy to be a part of that committee. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I ask a question of Representative that carried the bill, please?
Yes, thank you. Good evening.
We've had some good discussions about education this year, and I appreciate all you've done. And I only ask you because you're the one carrying the bill. But I want to know, is this considered health curriculum, or, I mean, I don't know where you brought it in. Is it sex education? Is it health?
Mostly,
Did it come into, what area did it come in as?
where it's going to go into the classroom?
Yeah, like
or-
what made it happen? Why did we think, was it to develop the curriculum on health education or sex education or?
Yeah, so mostly sex education and then just biology,
And-
just the science.
The science
side.
of biology. And I admit, I've let education be somebody else's business. I believe in it and I'm strong about it for my family and your kids, but I don't have the particulars. So I'm asking out of ignorance, but I lost my thought for a second, but what I'm trying to decide is if this is just, what age group? Is this K-12 or?
It is K-12.
K-12. Okay, so the other thing that made me come up here is years ago, because I've been here a long time, a representative carried a bill that we passed that went into law that in order to have a sex education course of study as a student, you had to opt in. Are we still doing opt-in for sex education?
You don't,
You can't hear me?
Let's keep it quiet.
I'm sorry, I was probably looking at my co-partner here. My question is, do we opt in to sex education?
and with that, I don't know that I could give you a definitive answer. I think part of that would be local control of if they are setting that or not. I don't know that there's a state statute. I
Well,
can check,
okay,
but
I know there was a state statute and you're new
you
in the
can
job.
opt in if they are opting in. Okay.
And so I think that makes a difference too. And when we look at this project, and it's going to be there for everybody all the time. But that's just my question. It's an unfunded mandate. I would love for my children in maybe high school to see that, or maybe junior high, maybe grade 6 or 5 when they do the sex talk. But I'm not sure that it's appropriate
Sure.
at all levels.
On the funding side, I know that there are several of these that have been produced that are free.
Have
that
you
are
seen
free.
them?
I have, yes.
I have not seen them, so I don't know. But what will they cost? Do you know?
They're free. There are several of them that are free. I'm sure there are some that you can pay for, but there have been groups that have made these at their own cost and donated them. They're out there on YouTube and the internet that for download of and use of schools.
Oh, okay. That reminds me of when my grandson wanted to know where baby dinosaurs came from and his mother had a fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to be voting against this only because I think we still have to opt into sex education, and I'm not sure we can be doing this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Speaker recognizes Representative Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To answer the previous question, I remember my children's school district was an opt-out system, and I think that's fairly common in Kansas. There was a question about where is the legislature's role in curriculum. And if you go to chapter 72 and you start with 3218, there is a statute that talks about accredited schools, mandatory subjects, and areas of instruction, and that goes back to 2005. 72314 goes back to 1923, and it's the required subjects in elementary school. 723217 goes back to 1919. It's the required courses of instruction and graduation requirements. You go back to Kansas History and Government in 723235, 1988. And then you go more recently to financial literacy in 723236. There are places where we do describe, but what we don't do is say which one you must use. There are, to answer another question that was just asked, there are several free videos. In fact, the one that KDHE uses was produced by a company that was hired by National Geographic. I have watched it. It's beautifully done, short, and appropriate for any age grade level. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the carrier stand for a couple questions, please? All ready for you. Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you for coming up here. Couple questions. First off, you said you've seen these videos. I was trying to look at what are the learning outcomes of these videos that are being required. Is it specifically the parameter is it has to be 3 minutes? What if it's 5 minutes? Or do they just have to watch it for 3 minutes and then they could turn it off?
I think the bill just says at least 3 minutes in duration and shows the development of the brain, the heart, vital organs, and early human fetal development. And yes, I have seen it.
Yeah, and you have seen it. And they're free, open source videos.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we don't pass this, like let's say we don't like the video part, does the state board get raises?
No.
So how are those, how is that a connection? We have to do the 3-minute videos or you don't get a raise. Is that how this bill lines up?
I mean, that could be a caricature, but I don't know that that would be the actual intent or the process of how it arrived here.
Okay, so then if we took out the videos, we'd be all right with them just getting their raise?
I would be, but getting it through both chambers is.
Yeah, but through both chambers, okay. All right,
Thanks, sir.
thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Getz, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think my closing remarks would be, I think in education, one thing I've been trying to remember is that the constitutional responsibility of education first comes to us, first comes to the legislature. And so from that, there's an authority. And some of that authority has been delegated and shared to the state board, to the districts, and there's a partnership there. But I think when schools are doing great or not doing well, I believe in trying to maximize the principle of responsibility. And this is a couple ideas that I think would help education in two different areas. And so I would urge your support for the state school board and the science of early development. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report.
This constitutes final action on the House Bill 2382. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? House. Seeing 10 hands, call the House as in order. Doorman will close the doors. Members will be in their seats, and the clerk will call the roll.
Carpenter, W. Hubert, Penn, Roser, Sawyer, Clayton, Tarwater, Turk, Wassinger.
Representative Roser votes aye. Representative Penn votes aye. Representative Carpenter vote your vote. Yeah, you do have to vote. Yes or no? Aye. Will Carpenter votes aye. Representative Turk votes aye. Representative Tarwater votes aye. Representative Sawyer Clayton votes no. The three amigos may be excused. Representative Wassinger votes aye. Are there any explanation, does anybody desire to explain their vote? Are there any changes of vote? Not seeing 10 hands, the call is raised. Not seeing any other changes, 84 voting in favor and 40 against passage of House Bill 2382, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Francis for a motion to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2122.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right, everybody's too tired for me to do this little thing tonight, aren't they? All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Should I say the Pope? Conference committee report brief, House Bill number 2122 passed the Senate 40-0. It's comprised of two pieces that passed our body. One of them was a truck registration bill. What the purpose of this bill was, it was to bring regulations between apportioned and non-apportioned commercial vehicle registration regulations in congruence with each other. Another thing that it did was it raised the minimum registration fee that could be paid quarterly from $100 to $300. The big part of this is the electric and hybrid vehicle registration fees that have become more and more important as Elon Musk's Tesla company has become, yeah, we got it, right. You know, this is one of those deals where the Senate didn't have a chance to get it above the line over there, but their committee did, their transportation committee passed it out. They passed it out with a $50 registration fee for the hybrids. That was what it already was. When we passed it out, we had an $85 registration fee for the hybrids. We compromised on $70. One of the problems with the $50, another change in this was we have the money going to the state highway fund, and then 1/3 of it will go to the city county highway fund. And that would have really created a bad physical note for KDOT because there would have been a $500,000 loss in the state highway fund because of that change. So we took it back to $70 so that the KDOT's state highway fund would remain whole. $2. Anyway. With that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill number 2122, and I'll stand for questions.
You had a lot of bingos in there, didn't you?
Trying to get more.
Is there discussion? The speaker recognizes Representative Helgerson.
I support the motion.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Francis, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On a more serious note, this will be the last time I should be at the well before veto session. And I do want to thank my vice chairman from Johnson County. I want to thank my ranking minority member from Sedgwick County. And I want to thank all of the members of our committee that worked together. You know, you all did a great job, and it's a pleasure to serve with all of you. And thank you for your work this session. And with that, I close, Mr. Speaker.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2122. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing 10 hands, the call is in order. Doorman will close the doors. Members will be in their seats, and the clerk will call the roll.
Carpenter W., Collins, Helgerson, Hubert, Sawyer Clayton, Tarwater, Turk, L. Williams.
Representative Collins votes aye. Representative Helgerson votes aye. Representative Luis Ruiz votes no. Representative Clayton votes aye. Representative Laura Williams votes aye. Representative Turk votes aye. Representative Tarwater votes aye. Representative Carpenter votes aye. Are there any further changes of vote? Representative Mosley votes no. Representative Carr votes no. Representative Weichel votes no. Representative Simmons votes no. Any further changes of vote? Representative Valcola votes no. Representative Schlingen-Siepen votes no. Representative Carlin votes no. Any further changes of vote? Not seeing 10 hands, call is raised. Seeing no more changes of vote, 102 voting in favor and 22 against the passage of House Bill 2122, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Sutton for a motion to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2334.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This will be the last time the Insurance Committee is seen on the floor today, and certainly probably for the session. So I don't get so excited. You know you'll miss me. But I do want to thank our research and revisor and admin, and I think we've had a pretty good time in committee. So I want to thank the committee members and my ranking and my vice. We've had a good time with committee. And this one actually does things that I think some people might care about. A lot of times I don't have real sexy bills in insurance, so this is one that actually does some stuff that will move the needle for Kansas. The base bill is HB 2334. That is, as you'll recall, the captive insurance updates and legislation. There's some new stuff, there's some updated stuff. The only difference that was made in conference from what you saw on the floor was that there was a 1-year grace period given for fees for companies moving their domiciled captive insurance instruments back into Kansas. So we weren't getting that money to begin with, so there's no fiscal note on this, but it will encourage those companies to move their domiciles into Kansas, where we can then start collecting those fees. The base bill on this 2334 passed 113 to 10 on the House floor. Inside that also is SB 121. You'll remember this one as the one that does away with the date update change that we have to pass every year. That's kind of a big deal, I guess, because we won't have that bill to pass out every single year from now on. That one passed out of the floor, 101 to 21. SB 28 is included in this, and that relates to the public adjuster and insurance agent statutes regarding their license renewal and denial of licensure and suspension revocation. That one passed out of here, 101 to 21. 2046, here's another one that moves the needle a little bit. This one dealt with travel insurance. It included life and health into the inland marine instruments that we had used for travel insurance. So that's kind of a big deal for travel insurance, and it passed the floor 118 to 0. Last and no, not least, if you're an insurance agent, reduces insurance company premium taxes. I don't think anyone's going to be deeply upset at removing that $2 fee that recurs every year for insurance agents, or insurance companies, rather. That one passed out of the floor 104 to 18. None of these were controversial, but they actually did do things that are, I think, important to a number of Kansans, and I feel kind of happy about getting some of these passed. Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee report on HB 2334, and I'll stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to thank our chairman, who I've worked with for a couple of years, and I know I have some work still to do, and we will try to cut down on shell bills, but I'm not very effective with them, so we'll see what happens in the future. And he just nodded to me that that's true. I have no control. Anyway, as he explained it, it was very good. The other thing we did was correct or change the date of publication for everything. And so I'm just bringing up the tail end to let you know that we're all in agreement. And I support, and I ask for your support for House Bill 2334. And I will miss insurance. Oh, not.
Oh, you will too. Get over here.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Sutton, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2334. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Vaughn votes aye. Seeing 10, we don't need to call the House, we got them here. Representative Turk votes aye. Representative Tarwater votes aye. Representative Clayton votes aye, and the three amigos can be dismissed. Representative Carpenter votes aye. Are there any further changes to vote? Seeing none, 123 voting in favor and 1 against. The passage of House Bill 2334, the same having received the constitutional majority of the bill, is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2054. You've been up here a lot of times on 2054.
Fifth time's a charm, Mr. Speaker. Body 2054 is the campaign finance limits bill. This bill is very, very close to the current statute. I'm going to cover what is changing in the campaign finance statute with House Bill 2054. First, all of the donation limits are doubling to candidates. So for House members, for instance, it goes to 1,000, for senators to 2,000, and so on. You can collect money for the primary and the general before the primary, but you have to account for that money in the general and not spend it until after the primary. The party limits, which were a piece of contention the last time I was up here with the bill, what we're doing is for the state party and for the statewide party committees, such as the legislative committees, the donation limit will be $35,000. For the county and the district party committees, the limits are going to be $10,000. So essentially what we are doing is we are increasing these donation limits to keep up with inflation. In the previous version of the bill that we brought forward for an agree to disagree, we had removed the cash limits. We have reinstituted the cash limits, but they've doubled along with everything else. So now you can take $200 in cash as a candidate maximum from an individual. That is everything else that is currently in place is in place in this bill. One thing that I will highlight, there is no limit today on what a party can spend on behalf of a candidate. But that in-kind donation, if you will, or that in-kind donation exemption is not in statute. It's just what we've done, right? So the Republican House Campaign Committee or the Democrat equivalent can pay for mailers in your district on your behalf, coordinating with you because it's a party, and that is not counted as any kind of donation limit. But that was not in statute, and there was some concern that some future Public Disclosure Commission, which used to be the Ethics Commission, might interpret in the future that as a donation. So we have explicitly put in statute that parties can spend money on behalf of candidates of their party, and that's not a donation. That's exempted from donation limits. That's all that's in the bill. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report, and I will stand for any questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And folks, this is it. Last time for me up here. So I'll be as quick as I can. The carrier of the bill did a fine job. There's a couple things to clarify, though, that I would like to bring your attention to. One of the things that is also in the bill that was not mentioned was the different accounting system that is needed. It's going to align with the federal government. And the example that was given to me by the Kansas Legislature, the KLRD, is that before you could only ask at the door, and you get someone there at the door, and they said they want to give you a donation contribution. The max for the primary was $500. The max for the general was $500. With this new method, the amount goes to $1,000 for us, but you can ask for $2,000 at that time if it's at the primary. So you get $2,000, and then you and your treasurer will get to decide how much of that will be moved on your primary and how much of that will be on your general. So you will have two accounting systems that's going to align with the federal government on that. So you want to make sure you visit with your treasurer because that will be a change. The other thing to note is that these limits that are being addressed, the $35,000 to the party committee, and those are specifically to candidates and persons and political committees. There's still unlimited amounts that can be transferred in between state parties and recognized parties, and that's to help ease the funds going through, so it simplifies the accountability and the assurances on those transfer of funds. And it's based on that I'm going to have to recommend, at least I will recommend for you to vote your district, what's important. I will be opposing this because the optics, as well as I was never asked at the door, hey, can I give you more money? And I think this is not the right time for us to consider such an increase in that. It also still deters those that have grassroots efforts in making a run at an office, that they'll have an uphill battle. So vote your district on that. I also want to thank the chair for his patience, as well as the vice chair. I learned a lot. I also want to recognize and thank my cool election committee caucus members for keeping me sane and humbled. Thank you so much.
Speaker recognizes Representative Potter Parshall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to rise in opposition to this CCR, mainly because there's still a lot of ability for this to be a pass-through issue when you have unlimited contributions to certain entities that can give unlimited to another entity. Additionally, as I was looking at the breakdown of the population aspect of it, if the population is over a certain amount of the jurisdiction, you get $2,000 as your limit, versus if it's under a certain amount, you only get $1,000 for a limit. I'm like, that's really, really, really strange. Where did it come from? Interestingly enough, it came from Wisconsin. They do the same thing. And you know what else is happening in Wisconsin right now? A Supreme Court race with unlimited funds, around $200 million currently going into that. So removing the caps on anything at this point, I think, is not doing our due diligence as elected officials representing our districts. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this CCR. First and foremost, I don't appreciate making enormous changes to the ethics laws in the state of Kansas when we actively lack an ethics director. I think it's irresponsible. Personally, I would love to talk through some of these changes with the person who's going to be overseeing and perhaps enforcing the changes, but we cannot do that right now. Furthermore, this has had bipartisan opposition since day one. That is significant. I think that really means something. People who often don't have much in common have come together and say we don't think that corporations should be louder than our voters in the democratic process. I also would like to highlight that this bill was written by people who will profit off of it. Of course, they're not writing the legislation with the health of our democratic process in mind. They're going to make money when we raise how much is in our campaign accounts, because of course, they can charge more. I will also say this creates an avenue for someone to presumably give the maximum amount to all 105 county parties, should there be 105 county parties, and then use that as a single give. It really does not stop any kind of substantial contributions. I would encourage us to pause and revisit this next year when we have an ethics director who can be a part of the process, an ethics director who can come to the elections committee and actively engage with the members, who can bring their expertise. And I would encourage us to please, please, please take that seriously. Many people have said they have never once heard their constituents say, please, give me more money. Let me give you more money, rather. They tell us to give them more money all the time. But please do not support this. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Proctor, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have no idea what they do in Wisconsin. This was done really to, in the example that was cited was done because there are some county commissioners that have districts that are bigger than Senate districts. And so we wanted to give them the ability to be able to compete and get their voice out there just like everybody else. That's why these larger counties, more than 50,000 people, got that additional bump to the Senate level as opposed to the House level. I don't know what caps we're removing here. All we are doing is we are increasing with inflation. And why are we doing that? Why are we standing here talking about increasing the campaign finance limits? We're talking about it because in several states, the campaign finance limits have already been ruled unconstitutionally low, and they were the same as ours, or they're currently in court being sued because they were considered unconstitutionally low. The Supreme Court has said that money, when used for political expression, is speech, and you can't put unreasonable limits on speech. And so the courts understand that there's a compelling interest in limiting the money in politics so as to prevent the appearance of quid pro quo, but those limits cannot be unreasonable. And right now, courts have judged that states that had the same limits as ours, their limits were unconstitutionally low, which is why I'm standing up here presenting this bill to you. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2054. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Humphreys votes aye. Call the House. Seeing 10 hands, call the House as an order. Doorman will close the door. Members will be in their seats and the clerk will call the roll.
Blacks, Essex, Estes, Hubert, Sawyer Clayton, Stogsdill, Tarwater, Thompson, Turk.
Representative Estes votes aye. Representative Turk votes aye. Representative Tarwater votes no. Representative Clayton, Sawyer Clayton votes no. Representative Thompson votes aye. Representative Blex votes aye. Representative Essex votes aye. Representative Stogsdill votes no. Any further changes of the vote? Representative Howe votes aye. Any further changes of votes? Seeing none, 71 voting in favor. Nope. Howe. Stephen Howe. Not seeing 10 hands, call is raised. 72 voting in favor and 52 against the passage of House Bill 2054. The same having received the constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater for a motion to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2342.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2342 was the background check on commerce employees, and we added Senate Bill 30 to it, which does the same thing for the Department of Labor and the KBI. I'll stand for questions. Or, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report, and I'll stand for questions.
Is there discussion? The Speaker recognizes Representative Sawyer Clayton.
This is a good bill. Vote yes.
Seeing no further discussion, this constitutes final action on House Bill. Oh, no. Representative Tarwater, you may close.
Mr. Speaker, I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2342. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Kessler votes aye. Representative Thompson votes aye. Representative Miller votes aye. Representative Mosley votes aye. Any further changes of votes? Seeing none, 124 voting in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2342, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Humphreys for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2371. Speaker recognizes Representative Laura Williams for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2371.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2371 is the LLC bill, which we passed out of the House 112 to 11 on February 20th. The only change here that the Senate made was the effective date. With that, I move my motion to adopt the Conference Committee report.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Osman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The carrier of the bill did a very thorough job of explaining. 87 pages of LLC bills. Okay. It's late. In seriousness, okay. I voted against this last time around, and I voted it because there was a Series LLC issue, and I didn't feel that it was properly vetted in the House. I mean, that issue still remains, but it moved over to the Senate. It had a hearing over there. There was testimony over there on the Series LLC. It passed 40-0 on that side. You know, I don't consider, the Senate doesn't always do the best job of vetting things, but I'm going to at least trust their opinion on this. And as it came back over here, we looked at it, we worked it. I'm fine. I'm fine with the bill as it stands right now. My last time around, I said I'm not going to support this bill. I am going to support it this time. I think that we're mostly adopting the Delaware model. I think this is going to be a very good change for LLC law within the state of Kansas. So yes, I would urge your support. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Williams, you may close.
I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2371. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 120 voting in favor and 4 against the passage of House Bill 2371. The same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2169.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2169 is that pesticide bill. Senate added daycare facilities to it, so they cannot build daycare facilities on that land that is, that has the chemicals on it. And it also, they provide, a presence of such chemicals needs to be mentioned in the future deeds. If they ever sell the land, they made the bill better. I urge your support. Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report.
Speaker recognizes, is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Sawyer Clayton.
Thank you, Body. I do agree that the Senate did make this bill better. Members of my caucus, I want to remind you that a number of you voted against this. I did vote in favor of it, so our caucus was a little bit broken. Make sure that you are looking that up and being consistent. Vote your district. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Speaker recognizes Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll make this short. I am still in opposition to this bill. I just kind of want to remind the body why, and then offer clarification from a comment that was made in the last debate on this particular bill. I do think the Senate amendment made it better. I do think the amendment we added on residential exemptions made it better. But overall, I am still worried that by creating a sole exemption for these contamination requirements with KDHE and meeting these requirements, I think singling out a single business to allow them to not do this sets a really bad precedent. And there are still risks to human health. In particular, I have worries about contamination of groundwater on site. I have worries about other effects that this may have into the future. The thing that I wanted to address from last time was the environmental insurance policy payout that this company received. So there was an indication that they received some money, but it wasn't sufficient for the actual remediation of the site. I did follow up on that, and the $24 million they received in insurance dollars to remediate the site was for both the all the wooden structures on the facility, not just the pesticide storage area. So long story short, they received the money to fix this issue. They promised KDHE that's what it would be used for, but instead we now have a bill in front of us to exempt them from having to do that remediation. So I think that's wrong. I don't think we should be setting this precedent. I don't think that we should be passing this bill. So I stand in opposition to House Bill 2169.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Tarwater, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it's a unique exemption because it's the only piece of land that KDHE gets to regulate. And if they could regulate the land that our houses were on, we'd have to exempt all of them too, because we use the same chemicals. And my brothers used to make me eat mud pies when I was little, and I turned out perfectly normal. I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2169. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Miller votes no. Representative Osman votes aye. Representative Wassinger votes aye. Representative Steele votes aye. Any further change of the vote? Representative Schlingen-Siepen votes aye. Any further change of the vote? Seeing none, 92 voting in favor and 32 against the passage of House Bill 2169. The same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Kessler for a motion to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2028.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, what we have here is a couple of ag bills in Fed and State. But what we did was we addressed the lifetime seniors hunting license. So that actually sunsetted by mistake. Nobody caught it. So it fell off the books, and our senior citizens haven't been able to buy their discounted lifetime hunting passes. So what we did is we took a look at it, and all we did was really we scratched the expiration date out. So it would be inactive. It would bring it back to the in the statutes, and then also the youth lifetime. It didn't expire till like 2031 or 32. So, but we just into that expiration date as well. Well, Senate got a hold of it and changed some of those around. Then we also have a waterfowl bill in there. Waterfowl has been a pretty grave concern to the department over the last several years. They've been working on this for, well, I was told for 3 years, but I just talked to a former employee of the department, and he said it's been closer to 4 years that he's been working on this. But mainly working with out-of-state hunters. So some of the things we did to the bill is we put the senior lifetime back in there. So that's back in there. And the youth, we did a birth to 5 years old. We did a lifetime for that. That's going to be a $300 lifetime. Then we did a 6-year-old to 15-year-old, and that's going to be a $400 lifetime hunt. Now, the main provision with the waterfowl is what is the best way that we can limit some of the out-of-state hunters and still make it good hunting for everybody, and prioritize our Kansas hunters that have been getting squeezed out of a lot of areas and a lot of the watersheds that we have. We have some extremely viable watersheds that are extremely important to the waterfowl. Cheyenne Bottoms being one of them. It's had some struggles because it's been dry for a few years, but it's actually, I think it's the largest watershed in the United States. It's very critical to our birds on the migration, on the pattern. So some of the other changes that we made, that we limited out-of-state hunters in this bill to, they can come in and hunt on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And, but that does not apply to walk-in areas. It does not apply to our navigable rivers. And it doesn't apply to any private lease that you have. If you lease land like a lot of the out-of-state people do lease land, I know their deer hunters do. So in order to kind of make adjustments and kind of make some room here, we had some complaints that some of these small towns might have an economic impact, and so we heard some studies at Cheyenne Bottoms with the duck hunters not really being around there for the last few years because it had no water. They actually went around for the last 2 years and talked to the chamber, the cities, the towns, to try to find out what kind of economic impact Cheyenne Bottoms has had over the last several years with not having the water there. And they said their reports that they did was at best negligible, hadn't really seen a noticeable change in an economic growth or in the economic pattern. But so this was kind of the compromise that we kind of had. So in order to ease a little bit into that and make this a little bit softer, we went ahead and what we did is we forced the Department of Wildlife to do an economic study for us. So this January coming up, they're going to have to do an economic study and report all of the findings that they have. That's going to include hotels, different things, licensing, hunting, bird limits, you know, your harvest, everything. So we can take a look at it next year to see that report goes to the Ag Department and both the House and the Senate, and they'll get that by the end of January. So if something alarming shows up in there, we could actually address this issue next year right away. I believe duck season starts in like October through January, so we'll be right in the thick of it. Not only that, they have to do another economic study the following year for 27. So January in 27, they'll have to do it again. So now we have even better numbers, have a full season, have another partial season, and then we can take another look at the economic impact of limiting out-of-state hunters to 3 days. And then we have until 28 to do something. July, I think it's July 1st, July 31st. Is that right? Oh, no, it has a 3-year sunset on it after that. So if we don't do anything with it in 3 years, it all goes away. Just that provision. So the only thing that has a sunset is just that provision on the 3 days. The rest of the statute stays the same, but that limiting to 3 days would go away. So that was kind of the gist of it. Oh, the fees did go up on the waterfowls. It did raise those. Waterfowl stamps were $8. I think in-state goes to 20 and out-of-state goes to 100. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Will Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, I want you to know that I probably don't recommend throwing a tantrum like a 5-year-old like I just did to get my way on this bill. I cooled down by the time I got to my office, and now I'm completely cooled down. This bill means a lot to me. It means a lot to the people in the state of Kansas. So with that, we'll talk about it. So senior licenses in this bill. Wildlife and Parks had a 5-year sunset on it. 2017 run out in 22. They didn't catch it till last year. So we've been selling licenses to folks. They can't get a senior license. If this bill goes down, we won't get another seat. We won't be able to sell senior licenses for another year. As well as in there is bills that affect our future hunters. There's a 0 to 5 is $300. 5 to 15 is $400. That's our future hunters for lifetime licenses. So that's the two things that are critical in this bill. But let's talk about the rest of it, because this is where everyone gets all bent out of shape about it. It's non-resident waterfowl bill. You'll hear a lot of talk about a loss of revenue, but a lot of it's just talk. We don't really know how much revenue we're going to lose because we've never done this before. It's got a 3-year sunset on it. It was vetted by the Wildlife and Parks Commission, as the chairman said, for 4 or 5 years. It has a study in there to do it like that. It doesn't affect military folks at all. It doesn't affect anybody that has a lifetime license. There needs to be a balance between non-residents and residents. Residents are constantly getting pushed out of the market by people with more money, with more, and the other thing about it is, as other states have faced this pressure, when they regulate, it pushes people into Kansas because Kansas doesn't have any regulations like that. Many states, North Dakota has a draw. Arkansas, they have a $200 permit. And then they have a 10-day permit that you can hunt there for $100. So let's talk about that. Kansas has the least amount of public land in the nation at 98.3%. This only affects public land. It doesn't affect private land, watersheds, rivers, anything like that, but it does affect our public waters. So this year, we're not unique to this. This year, there were 13 bills in the Oklahoma legislature dealing with non-resident waterfowl. So when that happens, they get pushed out of there and they come to us. So I ask you this one time, and the other thing I'll tell you is, I'm working on another bill about this because I do think there are models that don't limit non-residents, but you end up pricing them where you can price them out of the market and control your non-residents by raising the fees. So Arkansas, which is the premier waterfowl place in the nation, that's how they do it down there. And they also, one of the things that they do is they only allow hunting till noon, only duck hunting, so that doesn't put so much pressure on the ducks. So I'm asking you for 1 year. I'll tell you what, if I don't get this done, if this gets done, give me a year. If I don't, I'll put the bill in that repeals this bill. But that's what I asked for you. Ask one time to think about our seniors, our kids, and our resident waterfowl hunters. One time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Speaker recognizes Representative Corbett.
Thank you, everybody. This lifetime license for kids is very special. The committee did a great job. And especially on the seniors from 65 to 75. Those are two crucial things that have to happen. The problem we have, this bill was killed in the House committee. 2 out of 3 conferees said no. No matter how bad this bill seems to you, look at the bright side, try to save the kids and the old timers, let them get out hunting again this year. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Blex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is also very important to me. And ironically, this bill has really been vetted within the Wildlife and Parks Commission. And due to a bill we passed, they started getting a lot of complaints from residents about the overcrowding on our public areas. And basically, we have 4 major state areas, that being Meridocene and Neosho Wildlife in the southeastern part, Jamestown out a little further west, and of course Cheyenne Bottoms, 19,000 plus acres. And of course Cheyenne Bottoms has been dry, which actually puts a lot of pressure. This bill would actually, non-resident restriction, a lot of states are doing it. Arkansas has done it. And I live down right along the Oklahoma line. Elk City Reservoir is a big major waterfowl area. And we're getting a horrific amount of pressure there. I got probably 10 or 12 letters and calls from people that basically want to restrict because their areas to hunt are just being overcrowded. And Wildlife and Parks started this in about 21, and they started getting complaints from residents. We don't have a place to hunt. Non-residents are crowded out. You go to a parking area, and there will be 10 vehicles, and bulk of them will have non-resident tags. And they had a chance. They've had several public meetings addressing this very topic. However, ironically, there's 7 members on that commission, and they take recommendations from the professional biologist, and they relay that to the secretary, and then those 7 members in that commission actually have the authority of what we're hopefully going to do here tonight. They could have passed that as a regulation, but because of another bill we passed, if you recall, House Bill 2648, which required a state agency to give an impact on a regulation that they may have passed. And so they got caught short. They had public complaints. And so consequently, here we are, legislature, when they could have really solved it within the own Wildlife and Parks. And certainly Mondays and Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. And I realize the complaint that, you know, if your son or daughter comes up on a weekend, it's nice to hunt with them. We're not shutting, non-residents can still hunt 7 days a week in Kansas. However, they will be restricted on those public areas to only Sunday, Mondays and Tuesday. And ironically, there's a lot of stuff at stake here. And you've already heard a lot of that with the lifetime licenses and the senior licenses that will put us behind the 8 ball. And then if we look at the waterfowl caps, that's a cap. Historically, I spent 28 years with Fish and Game, Wildlife and Parks, and whenever we reached a cap, it would usually take us 5 years or more to get to that cap. So it won't necessarily just go to $20 for residents or $100. It could, but more than likely it won't. But this is a very important bill. I think it's got a lot of history, and certainly as hunters, we're declining in numbers, and we don't need to be divided on this. We need to stand together, and I urge your support, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill for many reasons. I'm going to start with the whole thing is suspect. These are both agriculture bills that have gone through ag in previous years or this year, and then suddenly they're moved to Fed and state. So that is suspect, and I think you should all put your spidey senses up on that to start with. Then, the companion bill to this did come to ag this year, the House version. It did not get out of committee because there were so many concerns about how bad the bill was, the waterfowl portion. So I would think if the committee that has much experience in the area thought the bill was so flawed that they wouldn't even take a vote on it, we should take that under consideration. When the bill did come to ag, surprisingly, I'm not a hunter, but I did check in with my friends that do hunt to see what they thought. And they thought, well, first of all, it seems very unfriendly. It would make us not good neighbors, and they didn't like that. They also raised concerns about, well, my hunting buddy's from Missouri, and we like to stretch out our trip Friday to Monday, and this is going to be a problem. My other friend that hunts said, well, I wouldn't be able to hunt with my son on the weekend. And then it just was brought to my attention, you wouldn't be able to take your out-of-state kids and family hunting on Thanksgiving because it wouldn't fall in this 3-day period. That all seems bad. I would like to point out, in committee, there was no discussion about this being conservation driven. We are not running out of geese by any means. There was discussion about the geese are tired and need a place to rest and relax. My good friend from Winfield pointed out that there are large swaths of land set aside for photography, hiking, so they do actually have a space to rest and feed. The other things that are concerning about the bill is the economic impact. We were told it was somewhat over $300 a day an out-of-state hunter will spend, which one of my committee members calculated would be $7 million. So that's $7 million. They're not spending that in Kansas City. They're spending that in small towns. We are time and time again trying to generate business and income in our small towns, and now we're going to rip $7 million out? That seems just, well, I can't say it, but the representative from Topeka knows what word I'm thinking of. If, in fact, we need to limit out-of-state hunters because we feel like Kansans are not getting their fair share, that could be done through economic methods. We could raise the fees on the waterfowl stamps and as high as the market would bear until we reach the number of out-of-state hunters we want. We could have a lottery for both out-of-state licenses and waterfowl stamps. That's an option. We could restrict the number of out-of-state permits. We do not have to undermine the economy and good family outings when we have these other methods. Finally, if this was an emergency and it has to be done right this second, why did we not get the bill until the very last day of committee? Parks and Wildlife knows where we are. We've been there all year. We had plenty of room on our calendar. If this was such a big deal, it had to be done right this second. That bill could have been introduced at any time this session. So, in summary, the whole thing is suspect. I actually think it reeks of cronyism, and there are much better ways to go about solving this problem, and I urge a strong no on this bill.
Okay, let's quiet down just a little bit. Speaker recognizes Representative Hellwig.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be honest, I do not like the fact that I'm up here opposing Bill 2028 because the first half of that is a really great bill. The problem is the Senate put on SB 213, which I have a real problem with, and it affects my area. This bill limits waterfowl hunters that are out of state to just Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. It takes a local problem and tries to apply a statewide solution. This is particularly harmful in my area of the state where out-of-state hunters and fishers contribute largely to our economy. In Cherokee and Crawford County, Wildlife and Parks manages 14,500 acres, of which 1,500 acres are public waters. Most of these acres are located within Cherokee County, known as the pits. It is an area that was strip mined for coal decades ago. This is known for its great hunting and fishing opportunities. Those acres do not produce a lot of property tax revenue, so we rely on businesses that cater to those individuals using the area. Limiting waterfowl hunters to just 3 days a week greatly reduces opportunities for those businesses that depend on out-of-state residents. Out-of-state hunters provide revenue to gas stations, outfitters, lodging establishments, restaurants, and guides, just to name a few. Data from the tourism economics that was given to Wildlife and Parks and Kansas Tourism shows that if a person visiting the area and spends the night, the revenue generated by that person is nearly $300 more than if they were just passing through. The 2023 numbers were if a person just passed through the area, they contributed about $90 to the economy. But if that person stayed the night, that number increased to $376 per person spending the night, because they're spending money on a room, gas, food, and supplies. If it were on my bucket list to hunt another state, I would not be impressed to be restricted to just hunting on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. If I was going to spend money and take a hunting trip, I would sure want more time than just those 3 days. Kansas has worked hard to become a hunting destination. If Kansas wants to be a destination for hunters, why would we restrict waterfowl hunting to out-of-state hunters to only 3 days a week? This bill does have a sunset and a study along with it, but this study is reactionary and not proactive. In my business, if I decide to take a risk, I evaluate that before I jump into the pool. This study is a reactionary study, and it will be done by Wildlife and Parks, who helped with this bill. This will not be an unbiased report. This bill did not make it out of the Ag Committee because they knew it needed work. There are other options, such as limiting the number of stamps, limiting licenses, having a lottery, or a number of other things, rather than just restricting hunting to 3 days a week for out-of-state residents. Please, let's not push bad legislation at this late hour. Please help me protect my district. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I heard a duck. It's unbelievable that we are here at this late hour talking about ducks. And as you've already heard, about a bill that didn't have a wing to fly on to start with. And I'm not here to speak against House Bill 2028, because the base bill we need to pass, and we've already passed it, and we should pass it if it ever came up again, because it's a good bill. What happens here is kind of like if some of you that were here last year remember a former representative that went to the lesser house, jumped up and was angry about what the Senate had done to the budget that we passed like 123-0. And he was really upset. And I honestly went and apologized to him this week, because I didn't understand why he was upset and why he would talk that way about the lesser house. I understand now. Because of this bundling that we do, or this way we take a bill, a very good bill, a heartstrings bill, and we put a bill inside it that makes it untenable. And then on top of that, you know, we've heard that multiple times from up here this evening, from the well. And not to belabor the point on this long issue or on this duck issue, but why did we've already said it's been taken, it didn't make it out of committee. And then I was told, okay, we'll work on it. I had someone tell me, we'll work on it and bring it back next year. And that's where I thought we were at. And then we're on the national news. If you've ever heard of a magazine called Outdoor Life, one of the largest outdoor publications in Kansas, and I was pulling that up so that I could tell you exactly what it said. Its top line issue, we're making Kansas popular. It says, non-residents can kiss weekend duck hunts goodbye if this bill passes. And that's true on public land. There's no crisis at this moment that we need to pass this bill tonight. Seniors will still be able to go buy a discounted license, and they can still hunt. The youth can still hunt. We asked multiple times to have this bill before it got to this point. We asked it to let's just segment out Cheyenne Bottoms. Let's just segment out Neosho Wildlife Area and not punish the whole state. Because this bill that was a local issue has statewide implications. They said there's no economic impact. I don't believe that at all. There is an economic impact to every single thing that we do up here. And the economic impact affects my friend in southeast Kansas. And some of you that have wildlife areas from some of the major reservoirs, which is public lands, that's going to affect your area as well, to the hotels, the motels, the cafes, the restaurants, and all the other areas, you know, where they go in and they spend money. So there'll be a loss of revenue to the wildlife and parks from out-of-state license fee sales. There'll be a loss of federal Pittman-Robertson dollars that return to Kansas for hunters' education, conservation, and more that are spent on outdoor things like ammo and license and fees and stuff like that, everything to do with outdoor. There'll be a loss of outdoor sports tourism dollars to community, businesses, and others. Children that live out of state, as already been stated, that come home for Thanksgiving won't be able to hunt with their dad because they live out of state. They can only hunt on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Your friends from high school or college that like to come back and hunt with you will only be able to hunt on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And we all have lives that we live. We have schedules that we keep up with. And sometimes, like in my case, my daughter comes back and she can only hunt on Saturdays with me. She won't be able to come back, and she just lives 3 miles across the border in Missouri, but she's out of state. My daughter in Arizona won't be able to come back, who comes back for Thanksgiving, won't be able to hunt over Thanksgiving because we can only hunt Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. There's a negative impact to other states in what we do here in this House. And it's exactly what's already been stated is happening. Bills are already being drafted in other states because people are looking at Kansas. Kansas is the center of the universe. What we do in Kansas has far-reaching impacts. There was no statewide economic impact study done. And first we heard it was 3 years, and then we heard it was 4 years, and now I think the last person up here was 5 years. So I don't know how many years they've been working on this, but they did no economic impact study. What's going to happen if we do this? What's going to happen to the people that have businesses, that have lodges, that have bed and breakfast, that has Airbnbs, motels? What's the economic impact to them? And if you just Google waterfowl hunting impact, first thing that comes up, it says it has a significant impact on the economy of the areas where they hunt. So a no vote is not a vote against the base bill, House Bill 2028, which is an extremely good bill. And we can go one more year. I mean, it's only what, 8 months, 9 months now, till we're into January again? A no vote is to send a message that the House wants this bill returned to the floor clean, 2028 returned to the floor clean, so we'll vote it and pass it, and I believe it would pass just like that. But we're voting against taking good bills and taking something that wouldn't have a chance of passing anything, and not even out of committee on its own, and being plugged into a great bill. We're voting no against that. So I would just urge you, I know it's late and you're ready to get out of here. Let's vote and go on. But I would urge you to vote no on this House Bill 2028 that I've seen going to be pulled, not going to be pulled, going to be in committee, not going to be in committee. I don't know what all's going on. This has been an eye-opening year for me, and thank you for your time and attention to my rationale.
Speaker recognizes Representative Van Houten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's late, so I will be brief. I rise in strong support of this bill. This bill is not good for Kansas hunters. It is great for Kansas hunters. I ask you to prioritize Kansans and their families with a yes vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, Speaker recognizes Representative Kessler. You may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be quick too, guys. This is pretty simple. There is a biological issue with the birds. Since the birds have been overhunted and overcrowded, and with hunters shooting at them from border to border, the birds have changed their patterns. Their behavioral patterns have been changing. They've been doing things that aren't necessarily what they would be considered natural. Almost exclusively feeding at night because they can't do anything in the day. They have to keep moving and moving and moving. But there is some concerns from the biologists on overhunting and what that does to the birds and their behavior patterns. Also with that, it also has a key point to keep in mind here. If you guys want to prioritize out-of-state hunters over our fine people in Kansas that can't find places to hunt, because like former representative said, like 98% of our land is private. So if we want to prioritize out-of-state people over our residents, that's your choice. And this bad economic bill that we have went through the Senate. The waterfowl bill went through the Senate on its own, and it passed the Senate 38-1. The same bill that's going to wreck our Kansas economy passed the Senate 38-1 on a standalone waterfowl bill. They put that bill in with my really good bill on the lifetime hunting, and it passed the Senate 40-0. The same bill that's going to wreck our Kansas economy passed the Senate 40-0. With that, Mr. Chair, I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2028. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Slingensiepen votes aye. Sorry about that. Any further change of the vote? Representative O'Hobson votes no. Further changes of vote? Seeing none, 65 voting in favor and 59 against the passage of House Bill 2028, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Messages from the Senate, the clerk will read.
Announcing adoption of HCR 5017.
Go ahead.
Announcing the adoption of HCR 5017, the Senate adopts the Conference Committee report to agree to disagree on HB 2158 and has appointed Senators Peck, Alley, and Ware as second conferees on the part of the Senate. The Senator announced the appointment of Senator Sykes to replace Senator Holzer as a conferee on HB 2045. The Senate adopts the Conference Committee report on SB 35. The Senate adopts the Conference Committee report on SB 125. The Senate adopts the Conference Committee report on SB 269. The Senate adopts the Conference Committee report on HB 2280.
Speaker recognizes Representative Thompson on a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2280.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Conference Committee report deals with House Bill 2280, which contains the previous two bills, House Bill 2273 and House Bill 2274. House Bill 2273 clarifies the definition of veteran and disabled veterans. This bill is made up of 13 sections describing 13 different benefits the veteran could qualify for. The clarified definition of veterans and disabled veterans is added to each of the 13 sections. It provides a consistency to the bill. It also passed out of House 122-0. House Bill 2274 is a bill concerning occupational licensing, certification, and registration fees. By removing two words referring to active duty, this allows the bill to include reserves and National Guard personnel and their family members. The word removed is the word active. It's the same word, it's just removed from two different places in the bill. This bill passed the House 121-1, and it just passed the Senate 40-0. Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee report for House Bill 2280. I stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Poskin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The carrier did a great job of explaining the bill, the parts that made it into the CCR. There was discussion about Senate Bill 106 that would have helped homeless veterans obtain a non-driver's license ID. That was part of the Conference Committee discussion, as well as Senate Bill 200, which would have created a Purple Heart Day of commemoration in the state of Kansas. And the Senate Select Committee on the Veterans chair at the 1936 mark on their Tuesday meeting said that amending these bills made them conferenceable. My good friend, the senator from Wichita, has been working on that bill to help homeless veterans obtain an ID for 3 years at the request of a committee she was appointed to by Senator Moran. So I do have a question for the carrier of the bill, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you know why we did not include Senate Bill 106 and Senate Bill 200?
They were not voted out of committee, so they weren't conferenceable.
The chair of the Select Committee said it was conferenceable.
I spoke with the reviser, and she spoke with the supervisor of the revisers that stated what I just did.
Well, we've sure had, thank you. We've sure had a lot of questions on what's comparable and what's not, how bills end up here. And really, the only thing that I'm aware of that changed is that I started looking into whether another commemorative day bill might be amendable to it. And if that's the reason that we lost Senate Bill 106 to help our homeless veterans that my good friend has been working on for 3 years, then God help us all. Please support the CCR.
Seeing no further discussion, Speaker recognizes Representative Thompson. You may close.
Mr. Speaker, I close and move my motion.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2280. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Members will be in their seats. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Seibert votes aye. Any further change of vote? Seeing none, 124 having voted in favor and 0 against. The passage of House Bill 2280, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Colleagues, first adjournment is on us. You all have done a great job this year. And do you realize that not once did we go past midnight? In my 13 years, this is a first. I've never seen a year between the time we start and first adjournment that we don't go past midnight at least once. That's really a testament to the work our majority leader did and his staff in making sure that they got bills up every day for us to work. But it also has a lot to do with each and every one of you. I want to thank several people for all their work during this main part of our session. All we have left is veto session. I want to thank the leadership in the majority leader's office, the minority leader's office, the Speaker Pro Tem's office, and certainly in my office for the phenomenal work that they did. Those folks are working together every day to make this happen. And, you know, the minority leader and I had a meeting every single week, and we'd sit down and talk. Actually, it's probably more than once a week, but we would sit down and talk about what was happening during the week. The majority leader and the minority leader talked constantly every single day. So we've got a lot of good communications going on. We have our folks, our chairman and vice chairman and ranking minority members that work together in a fabulous way. We really have done a great job this year, and you all should give yourself a round of applause for the work you've done. You know, people ask me, you know, what's your goal, Dan, or what's your agenda? And I actually don't have an agenda of my own. I have an agenda of this house being the best house there is. And certainly I think in this Capitol, we have shown ourselves very, very well this year, and will continue to in the next year of the biennium. So thank you for everything you've done. And with that, are there announcements? Seeing none, Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to everybody for the team effort. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Thursday, April 10th at 9 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.